up, everybody? Welcome back to Mount MoGraph and Summit 46, the smooth house build inside Adobe After Effects. So this video is going to be pretty fun. I'm going to show you the absolute easiest way to do a nice little build up of a house with all kinds of little accent motions. I'm going to be using my new motion script, which is pretty helpful. However, you do not need that to follow along with this video. That's just a helpful little tool, totally not required to learn a lot in this video. So anyway, check it out, and then we're going to go jump into Illustrator, build our house real quick with a couple cool little tips, and then go build it in After Effects. So there it is, that is our house build we'll be doing today. You can use this to build a lot of stuff. You'll see this in a lot of modern motion graphics, just in the background of stuff, like all kinds of different elements will build on like this and have nice little character. And I'm just going to show you a really easy workflow to get this generated. I think this maybe took me about 15 minutes to put together, so hopefully it doesn't take us, well, it probably won't take us that short, but we'll get through it real quick, and you'll see just how easy it can be to get some professional looking graphics. So let's jump into Adobe Illustrator. I got Adobe Creative Cloud 2014 just came out, but there aren't any big changes. So if you have an older version, you should be able to do this just fine. So I have my document color mode set to RGB just so it works well with computers instead of for print. And other than that, I've got my little color module over here set to HSB, huge saturation and brightness, so we can get really subtle variations in color quite easily. So let's go ahead and just start building. A good thing to think about when you're building for these kind of graphics, just to keep your workflow nice and easy, is build from the back forwards, I mean. So that would be like building the backmost element or the bottommost element first and kind of building forward and adding your accents as you need to. So in our case, you know, the very most bottom element would be a shadow under our house here. So let's just create a really easy shadow, and I'll just maybe knock down my color a little bit, and we'll call that good. So that's going to be our base for our house, and I'll go into my align panel and just align this to the artboard. I like to keep everything nice and centered just for these builds. It keeps things very easy. So the next portion of our house would probably be the base, so we'll just try to do this logically and build a base. I'm just going to grab a different color gray that I like. This seems to look pretty good, so we'll just hold Alt here and copy this element up. Actually, you know what we should do is, to keep this easy, we're just going to create another rectangle here and scale this down accordingly. If you hold Alt, actually, when you're dragging any of these elements, it'll scale both sides proportionally. So that's a nice little tip, and hopefully this video will be full of helpful little tips. Alright, so I'm just going to add this little portion. It looks like the top of the deck or porch or something, and that looks pretty cool. Let's go ahead and just make another cube or rectangle or shape or something, and this is just going to be the main portion of the house, so kind of where you'd see the windows. If you grab your eyedropper tool, we can just grab the same color as our base of our house here, and then let's grab our rectangle tool. If you grab a tool here, you can actually click this little button over here. It's really subtle. I think they actually took this from Maxon, but for Cinema 4D stuff, if you let your mouse go when you have this little button highlighted, it'll actually pop out your window. So if you keep finding yourself jumping over to this side and you just want to undock it, you can do it like that, and that keeps things easy. So let's go ahead and just create another rectangle, and let's make this you know, a lighter gray, just different from the main portion, and this will kind of be the overhang of our roof. And then we'll go and just grab another rectangle. So I just saved myself about 2 inches of mouse movement, which is really great, you know, save some stress on my wrist. And then I will just draw another rectangle here, nice and easy. And why don't we give it maybe nice, nice dark color I think would look good, and this can kind of be the start of our roof. So this will be like our siding for our roof or something. And at this point, I think our shadow is really setting our illustration off. So why don't we just tone this down? Just go up into your color and kind of slide this down, make it a little bit more subtle, because he's just sticking out a little bit too much and really really killing the mood, which is just no fun. So let's go ahead and continue building our roof. I'm just going to draw another rectangle. It's just rectangles on rectangles, so that's what a house is essentially. I'll grab a black color and maybe tone it down just to like 91% of its color. So it's definitely going to be a darker element. Or actually it might be fun to make this nice red, you know, a little bit cartoony, which will look good and lend itself well. So let's go ahead and grab all of our elements and just go into our line and center this up, keep them nice and even. And all right, so we have all of our back elements built. Now let's go ahead and work forward a little bit. So our next element would probably be a little accent on the roof, as we saw in the beginning of the video. So we'll grab a rectangle tool and just draw it out holding shift to keep it equal, rotate it 40 degrees holding shift. We're going to go and grab our direct select button and just holding shift drag up until it snaps to the middle of our square here, and then we have a perfect triangle, and we can go and just set it right in the middle of everything and maybe just scale it up a little bit here. And that looks good. And what I'm going to do is actually press I for my eyedropper tool and just grab the same dark color we're using for our accent right here and just kind of add a little contrast to our building right here. So why don't we copy this? So Command C and then Shift Command V to paste it in place, and holding Shift and Alt to scale down proportionally in all the directions. We're just going to drag in a little bit and actually use the eyedropper tool one more time to grab the same color as the rest of our house. So now we have a little offset of color here, and actually I'm hating this red, so I'm gonna go and switch it back to that black. And you know what might be messing this up is these two elements here are just a little bit too dark, so I'm actually gonna make these a little gray, and I like that better. Our house is a little bit squatty, so I'm going to use that trick of holding Alt and just scale it up a little bit on the sides proportionally and make it a little bit wider, and just do that. So this is looking good. Let's go ahead and keep building our elements as we need to. So probably the next element, since we covered this top bit, would be, let's see here, maybe like some steps down here. So for steps, why don't we zoom in onto some blank area just so we can really focus. And we're going to draw a rectangle. And let's give it a dark color for the top of the step. We're going to hold Alt and just drag down a little bit just like that. Hold Alt again to scale in proportionally and then drag up a little bit. And let's give it a really easy dark shadow underneath the step. So just a nice black color. And that'll be subtle, but I think it'll add to a nice effect at the end of this. So we'll hold Alt and just drag out one more time. And drag down and just give this step a little bit of height here. So let's see if I can do this. We're going to call this good. It doesn't have to be perfect, I don't think. All right, so that's looking good. Why don't we give it a nice lighter color? So maybe like a nice light beige. And yeah, that's cool. So I'm going to just drag this little guy over here maybe and hold Alt and just copy this a couple times. Let's call it 3 times, so holding Alt to duplicate. I'll grab all of them and just move them over to our steps so it aligns with the top of our porch that we built. And wow, that looks great. That looks like a nice entrance to a house. He's got huge steps, so it's not quite a mansion, but he spent his money on those steps, so it looks great. All right, so we got this going on. The next element of this, as you can see, we're kind of building each element forward on this. Why don't we go ahead and add a door? That would seem like a good thing to do for this house. So we will just draw a nice rectangle here. I'll grab a brown color. Perfect. Looks great. And why don't we, let's see, add, I guess I should use my little panel I popped out. I keep forgetting about it. I'll hold shift and just make a tiny little circle here, and I will drag this over somewhere around there and just make it a nice yellow color. Boom, we got a door handle on our house. As you can see, this is the easiest thing in the world to do, just building these little elements, and it's so easy, you know, just getting that stylized look. As long as you build for it, it takes no time. So why don't we build some windows? So I will just draw out some windows, something like that. Probably don't want to do yellow. That is a weird look. So I'm going to make it a kind of light blue. Looks good. Maybe a little bit darker than that actually. So I'll grab that blue and just tone it down to 88% and hold Alt and just drag it over to this side. Why don't we grab both of these right here and do Command G to group them, and then what we're going to do is also actually group our door handle with our door for just right now. And so Command G to group it. And let's once again grab all of our elements and just align these. Perfect. So as you can see, it just centers everything, and then I can do Shift Command G to ungroup them, and that just keeps it so it's nice and proportional and scaled up properly with little to no effort on our end. So this is cool. It's a very basic house. We could totally leave it like that, but I think it'd be fun to add a couple extra elements. So why don't we do that? Here's another little trick. If you draw, let's make our porch right here. So if you just draw a little rectangle here, and let's say we're going to have our rectangle, we'll just set it up over here for a second to see how big we want our pieces of our porch to be. Let's see, I zoomed in and we'll scale this down proportionally, just like that. All right, so that looks like a good size. I'm going to hold Alt and drag it out just to another good area. So something like that. Let's grab both of them and just pull them down here. So this is where something cool can be done. I'll make these brown just so they look like a deck, a wonderful deck, in fact. All right, so we got our brown deck pieces. Instead of duplicating this and wasting our time aligning them, you can use something called a blend tool. So if you grab this blend tool with both of them selected and hold shift and click both of them, we're going to get this nasty blend, which is no good. But if you double click your blend, you can go into your blend options and change your spacing to specified steps and click preview. And let's change our specified steps to like 8, and then we'll unclick preview and then click it again. There we go. We got a whole bunch of duplicated things proportionally spaced. So we'll press OK and then just go up to our object panel and click expand. And now they are all going to be separate objects, and they're all grouped, unfortunately. So easy fix is Shift Command G to ungroup them. And there we go. We have a nice porch piece in no time at all. So we'll hold Alt and just duplicate this item here and rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm just going to put it along the top here and scale it up a little bit. Just like that. I might make it a darker color to give it a little bit of an accent. And then we'll also drag one to the bottom here. So that was super easy. We now have something that is either a ladder or a piece to our house. So let's make it a piece to our house because I don't have a need for a ladder right now. So we're just going to go and, let's see, move it around. That looks cool. Hold Alt and just duplicate this item and put it over on this side. Super easy. Our house is coming together. It looks pretty cool, and it's nice and even and pretty geometric looking, which is a great fun thing to do. So our door is a little bit big, so why don't we hold Alt and just scale it down unless you're happy with your door. Now my door handle is big, so I'll just move this over a little bit and hold Shift and Alt to scale proportionally into the middle of it. And there we go. That looks cool. I think we should add one little element up here. It looks empty. So why don't we grab our rectangle tool? I remembered about it up there. And I'm just going to make a little dash. I don't know. They're like vents they put on houses. I don't know why. And for this, I will just actually hold Alt and duplicate a couple of them. And another, if you don't like that blend trick, which is really useless if you're only doing 4, you can just grab them all and go into your line and just align them both. Align them to selection horizontally and vertically, and then you can just move them into place and they should be nice and even. And there we go. We got some accents on our house. That is cool. Why don't we add a little bit of elements to the front of our yard here? So I just added some potted plants in my version. So for that, I just created a little square over here, our rectangle. Man, I keep forgetting about this dude, so I may as well just close it at this point. And I'll just hold Alt and hold Shift and drag out a little bit so it stays on the right plane. Just kind of guess at what looks like a pot. I'm not going to worry about it being perfect. That looks pretty close to even. And let's make it maybe an orange color. Man, this side is now bothering me. That's pretty close. So cool. And then maybe I'll make one more little piece here just along the top. And we'll center this up together. So center to selection. And I'll make this darker. So perfect. That looks cool. Let's add a little branch or something for our tree. So make sure that's all centered. Shift Command back bracket to send it to the back of everything. Let's see. That is a little bit dark. So we'll make it a nice brown. And just because this is a nice simple look, why go crazy? We'll just make it nice and easy with a circle just like this. and I'm going to make it a nice green color. What a plant. That looks great. So we're just going to go ahead and maybe scale this down till it kind of fits the rest of our property here, and maybe put it right by the steps. And I'll actually, let's see, group it for a second and duplicate it, grab both of them and group those together, and now I can just make sure it's scaled up, or that way you can get your intersect point of the middle of them to line up with elements. So that's a nice way to just grab a couple elements and get them to fit evenly or align evenly. So I can grab them both and do Shift Command G and then Shift Command G to make sure they're all ungrouped and separate items. And there we go. We got a beautiful little house. I'm sure you've probably seen something similar in some commercial at some point, because it is pretty common. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop right now just as house. Would probably be good. Let's go ahead and just make sure we grab all of our items and do Shift Command G one more time to make sure none of them are grouped together. We're going to go and select our layer and click this little drop down and go to Release to Layers or Sequence Layers, and that's going to pop them all out separately, and that's why we want to make sure they're not included in groups or anything, because then this won't work properly. So I'm going to just drag down or drag up, whichever way, and then just release, and they'll all pop out onto their own layer, and then I can delete this original layer so we don't have any empty layers, and save it. Let's go ahead and jump into After Effects and just get this done with. I don't know how long that took, but that was pretty easy. So I have this set up in a funny way. And just for like a single monitor to display, and for using my motion script, this works great, and I hope this doesn't bother you guys. I just switched the layout a little bit because it'll be easier when you're working with a lot of layers. So I got my project panel over here. I'll just double click and let's find our house. So my house is on my desktop. Make sure to import as, composition, and retain layer sizes. Let's say open. It's going to open this layer eventually, and I can double click, and as you can see, I have my layer panel over here, just because there's so many layers we're dealing with now that, you know, you want to have a lot of space vertically. You know, you don't want to have like deal with only being able to look at 10, because you're going to want to cry if that's the situation you're in. So let's go ahead and do Shift Command Y to create our Command Y to create a new solid layer. Make sure it's a white layer. Actually, you can do whatever color you want. I'm going to pick a white just because that'll make everything stick out nice. So there we go. We got our solid layer at the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and name this layer real quick. Call it BG for background. I'm going to go and lock this layer. And then I'm actually going to, another little thing, a little tip is if you ever press F4, you can actually toggle your layer panel between showing, you can like pick two different states of it. So you can right click and hide different items if you use them. But when you have all your options up and you only have a small workspace, as you can see, your content looks ridiculously small. So I just hide everything that I don't really use a lot, and I can toggle back and forth if I only have one monitor, and then just press F4, and as you can see, you get a lot more real estate, and that's good for when you're just like, you know, originally setting up your layers and planning out your scene. So I can actually even make that smaller, and all of a sudden I have a ton of space. So I recommend setting up your panel like this. I think I can actually export this workspace as an XML. I'll figure out how to do that and possibly upload it for you guys if you want it. Let me know if you want it in the comments below. Anyway, enough of me jabbering away. Why don't we go ahead and get this animation going? So another good reason to work from the back forward is most of the time it will import in the order you created it. So as you can see, as I'm clicking through, it's highlighting the items kind of in the order we created. So that is cool. I just have a couple random ones that popped out. But why don't we start by just grabbing this element right here, and I'm actually going to go and make my composition settings. You can also do Command K. I'm just going to make this like 8 seconds. 48 seconds is a little absurd. So now I can actually see the seconds, and we have a lot of workspace here. So what I'm going to do is just go forward a little bit in time and press S for scale and set a keyframe. Now, unfortunately, in the view I have right now, as you can see, we're not seeing any properties. Like I can see my scale property, but not any numbers. So we're going to need to right click up here and go to columns and go to, would it be, I believe it's modes. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's modes we're going to need, which is annoying because, you know, it takes up a lot of space, but still it's decent. You have a decent amount of space, so that's cool. So let's see here. What do I want to do? Why don't we scale down our shadow? I guess I could also name this layer 58 shadow. So that is good. We're not going to have this pop up, and yeah, that's fine for now. So I'm going to be using my motion script for this. If I grab my layers, I can just control what the graph editor would do. So normally I'd jump into the graph editor and have to play around with all the stuff, but this just controls it for you. So it's a nice little fix. Once again, don't need it. You can jump into the graph editor if you like. So I'm just going to set this to about 54% speed. And now when I play this, it's going to have a little pop, which is easy. And you know what I'll do actually is make this into a linear keyframe over here. I'll grab my scale property and just click Excite, and we're going to get some properties to generate, and this is just a basic bouncing expression. So now it's going to have a little bit of extra movement, which will just add some excitement to the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this shadow layer just so I can't click it at this point, and we can move on to some other elements. I might even try to zoom in a little bit for us if this will let me. Well, I'm already pretty zoomed in apparently. All right, so that's about as zoomed as I can get for this portion. So why don't we go ahead and jump to, actually, I will zoom in if I can. So I'm gonna go ahead and click all these different base pieces that we built. So I have my base of the building, my little porch piece, my main porch piece, the top of my, whatever you call this, overhang thing, this next piece, like the gutter, and then the very top of the roof. And as you can see, they're actually in the order we created them. So that's one of the recommendations I had, is they're all grouped together instead of being crazy, and then you don't have to name them. So I'm going to click my little name function here, and I'm just going to call this like base house or something, and then click apply, and now I have all the names there for me, so I don't have to worry about anything. And then I can just go ahead, and I'm going to actually parent in a daisy chain kind of style all the different layers to each other. So now when I scale up one, I'm scaling up all of them, and we can actually stagger it, so we're going to get a really cool effect. So what I'm going to do is press S to bring up my scale properties on all these layers, and now when I click the scale property, we'll get some keyframes generated on all of them. Then I'm going to go back in time and actually unclick all my constrained proportions, just because I only want to change the vertical or y-axis. So another thing I'm going to do is all my anchor points are in the center of my object, so I'm going to click this little anchor point. This is, there's I think a couple other scripts that do this. I just made my own because I wanted to include it in this. So I'm sure you can find it elsewhere. I think I've linked it in other videos too. But I'm just going to click this bottom one, and all my anchor points will jump to the bottom of my items. So that way when I scale my Y property, it's all scaling proportionally on the Y-axis. So I'm going to set this down to 0 here. Which is great. And then I'm going to grab all these keyframes and just set my speed up to like 70 or 80. And this is my ease in, which is the equivalent of grabbing them and moving the little Bezier handle on here to get this kind of shape, which it just slows down your process when you're constantly jumping between windows, so that's why I made it. But anyway, let's go ahead and make this a little bit more exciting. So I'm just going to click each of these properties and just add my excite expression to them. So you select your property, literally just click excite, and you're going to get a very good default expression generated as well as controls. So we're just going to do this to all our little scale properties. Next, I'm going to toggle down, and let's grab everything past our base house 1. I'm going to hold Alt and press the right arrow twice to move over these keyframes over twice. And then I'm going to grab the next portion, right arrow twice, and then we're going to grab the next 3 portions, right arrow twice, and this is going to just make a really interesting staggered effect, or staggered bounce. That just adds a lot of life to your animation. So that's why I recommend this thing. It just saves a lot of time. And once again, I know I keep pitching it, but it's really only meant to like keep Mount MoGraph going for free and all that, but blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry for keeping talking about it. But as you can see, we now have a very interesting looking animation with a lot of extra movement. And this is taking us no time at all. So we're getting a nice build happening, and it's pretty interesting. So why don't we go ahead and yeah, jump into the next portion. So I'm going to grab these base house layers and just press U to hide all of our keyframes. And I'm going to actually lock these layers just for a second because I don't really need to see them and I know the order they're in. So that is cool. Why don't we go ahead and now select all of our steps. So since I have all my base layers hidden, I can't select them. So that way I can just drag my mouse over them and select all the steps, which would seem to be this portion. So I'm just going to click my name function and I'm going to call this step piece if I can type. So I'll call the step piece and we'll get some generated numbers. Really, really easy. I'm going to press S for scale and once again just set scale for everything, and this time we're going to unclick our constraint proportions one more time here, just like this. Very easy. And I'm going to actually press 0 for my X. So now they're all going to come out from the center proportionally. So once again, let's do that nice little excite trick where we'll grab all of our first keyframes and set our ease out up to 100%. No different than jumping into your graph editor and grabbing them like this and, you know, doing that. But I just didn't like jumping between windows, and it can be really helpful to not do that. But either way, it's super easy to do. So I hope you guys can still follow along with that. So now we have a nice little pop out. Easy. Let's go ahead and just add our excite expression to this. So I'm going to click excite, excite, and I'm going to once again just leave this on the default. You can change all these properties to more overshoot, bounce, or friction, which we'll actually do for some other portions of this video. But for this one, this is pretty easy. So I'm just going to grab that and put it on all my steps. So now when I play my step animation, we're going to get a nice little bounce effect, a nice little extra movement, super easy. But you know, that is kind of boring. They're all moving at the same time. So why don't we grab all of our steps and do Shift Command C to pre-compose them. Just call this layer steps, and then let's double click into our steps here. Did I miss? It looks like I may have missed one of the step layers. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? I think I totally did. Let's see here. Yeah, I might have just forgot to make this layer, or did I? Where is this layer? I just selected a layer and it is, this is a sneaky layer that got hidden. So I have an extra step layer that got tucked down at the bottom and it just threw me off. So kudos to him for being a sneaker, but it got him. So I'll press U one more time and let's just make sure these keyframes are lined up. Once again, grab that keyframe, just set that up to 100, and now everything is looking good. I found the missing step, so I'll grab all those and pre-compose them once again like I meant to and press OK, and now I got a pre-composed step layer. I'll double click into my steps and there our animation is. So one of the things we could do, you could just stagger it like we did before by grabbing the layers like this and holding Alt and doing your right arrow. Another nice trick is if you just grab all your layers and just go back in time and maybe set it to like 2 frames up in your corner and do Alt forward bracket, it's going to cut all of our layers, which seems kind of silly. But then if you right click your layers and go down to keyframe assistant and go down to sequence layers, what you can do is set an overlap, and since we have our keyframe set to 2, the distance of our layers, we can set it to 1 as our overlap and say OK, and we won't see a difference because we're not zoomed in. But now when I pull these over, in theory here, these layers should be staggered, which they totally did not get staggered, which is phenomenal. Let me try that again here. So I will cut all these layers, grab all these layers. Maybe I should zoom in a little bit to make sure this is working out for us. So I'll grab all those layers, right click the layers, and go down to keyframe assistance, sequence layers, and I set it to that is the issue there. I set it to 1 second instead of 1 frame. So there we go. We'll set it to 1 frame and say OK, and there we go. All of our layers get staggered perfectly, and then I can just go ahead and drag these layers out from the end, and that is the same as hand doing all the keyframes 1 frame of a difference. So anyway, those steps are set up, and now we have a nice staggered effect for this animation. Looks a little bit more interesting, and it was easy to do. So we'll jump back into our house and let's see how this animation is looking. I'm probably going to want these steps to come in actually earlier, and one of the nice things is when you have a pre-comp like we just did, I can actually easily, let's see, as this house is coming up, I can just drag this pre-comp over until I'm happy with when my animation is happening. So just like that, and then I might have to click into my composition for this and just make it longer since I dragged it over. So I'll just make this to like 18 seconds, and that's Command K to bring up that menu. And yeah, so that's perfect. And I can drag out this pre-comp here. And now let's see how this is looking. The rest of the elements all come together very quickly as well, but we have a nice little movement. Our steps are all coming in. There we go. We have just a bunch of nice wiggles going on, and it just looks very animated and very motion graphic-y. And this is just how to make your work stand out a little bit. Just like all the little accent motions and the subtle little stuff people seem to love. So I would recommend doing it. So it looks like this step layer is good. So I'm going to lock this step layer just so once again we can't mess with it. Let's go and grab our door layer and just get this middle portion figured out, and then we'll get to the other stuff. So I'm going to zoom in. My door anchor point is sent to the middle, and I'm going to want to scale it up, so I'm just going to set it to the bottom here. You can also use your pan behind tool with the Y. So I'm going to call this layer door, and then I'm guessing that the layer above it would be the door handle, and it is indeed because we built it smart. So I'm going to call this door handle, and then I'm going to parent the door handle to the door just so I don't have to worry about moving one and not the other. And then our door handle, let's go ahead and find this middle piece. So I'm going to actually unlock some of my base house layers, and our middle piece is this base house 3. So I'm just going to parent our door handle to our base house 3, just like this. So that just means as our base house 3 scales up, our door will as well, and that's the beauty of parenting things. But additionally, when that's happening, you can actually add like extra animation. So I'm going to go ahead and unclick my constrained proportions. And now as this is all popping up, I'm going to go and set my door actually to 0 here. And then I will just turn my ease out up to 100% and just have it scale up nice and smooth. Maybe even a little bit faster than that. That was like a second. So let's just add our Excite here. I'm going to click my Excite option, and this is one I'm going to actually change some of our variables. So with your door selected, I'm going to turn my overshoot up quite a bit, and I'm going to turn my bounce to maybe like 10. And what this is doing, if you guys haven't seen it, it's no different than jumping into your graph editor and adding this kind of movement to it. So just by changing your bounce, you're changing how many bounces your overshoot has. So if you set it lower, you're going to get kind of like a bounce back, just a single bounce back. And the more I set my overshoot, the higher the distance is, and the friction is the faster that dies. So let's see what this movement is looking like. So we have it pop up. It shoots up really fast. It does some weird stuff because it's jiggling and then kind of settles down. We'll call that good for now and maybe revisit it if it starts to look really bad. But the door handle is good, or the door is good. Let's go and get our door handle going. So just as this is all coming in, maybe when the door handle is like very stretched up, I'm going to pop my door handle in. So I'll just scale this proportionally. I'll set a keyframe to just 100% on both my properties, and then press 0 so it's scaled up, and then it's just going to pop in just like that. Grab both these and just set my easy ease to up to 100, which is no different than going into your graph editor and grabbing your door handle and just I have all my properties showing, so I'll just show. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it's no different than grabbing both your Bezier handles here and just moving them in or out like this. It just starts to be a mess a little bit. And I can actually, let's see, hide that graph. There we go. Anyway, so I will grab both of these and just scale this up to 100% just like this. So it's going to have a really nice pop into our scene. You can do F2 at any time to unselect all your layers as well. So just really easy, pop in, pretty subtle, but it's not a big piece of our scene. So that is cool. Let's go ahead and lock our door and our door handle. We're happy with that. Let's see what's up with these. That is our roof. Let's actually do our windows here. So our windows are right here. I'm just going to name my windows. Real easy. You can also just press enter on your layer to name it. I'm going to call it window and just press apply, and there we go. Both of my windows get named properly. So let's see. We're going to want our windows to be attached to something. So I'll go forward in time a bit until everything is done wiggling around. And I'm going to parent both my window to the same layer that my door is parented to. So that would be our base house 3. So I'll parent that, and then I'll just press S to bring up my scale properties here. And let's find a good spot to pop this out. So let's see, as you know, you just want to make things constantly exciting. So we have all this movement happening. Maybe when it's the door is also popped up to about there, why don't we begin our windows popping out? So I'm going to set a scale keyframe and then just drag these forward a little bit. And then I'm going to unclick both my constrained proportions. I'm going to drag the window over here and just move my anchor point to the left side, so it's just right over there. Grab my window 2 and move my anchor point to here, so I'll just click the right side. There it goes, it pops over, and then I can press, grab both my layers and just press my X property for my scale down to 0, and that means it's just going to pop up just like this, and it's going to be attached to our house, so it's still going to move and it's not going to look unattached. And I'm actually just going to make this into a very, let's make it a nice smooth movement. So I'm going to set my easy ease to 62, no different once again, and then going into your graph editor, zooming in and grabbing these Bezier points and dragging them like this. But I just like being able to do it without doing that, so I'll set it, I guess, to 63. I'll click out of my graph editor for a second here. Let's see how this is all looking. I'm going to play this animation. It pops out nice and smooth. It's looking cool. Very happy so far with how this is turning out. I'm going to go and lock my windows. Once again, we don't need to worry about them as we are just grooving along. Let's go ahead and lock our base layer. That is locked. Probably the next step is to deal with this stuff at the top up here. So base layer 5 is probably this little gutter thing we made. So let's unclick our thing. And yep, it is indeed. So what we're going to do is just go forward till everything is kind of settled down. And then we're going to parent these two upper layers right here, which I guess I will name upper house. I don't know, that's non-descriptive, but I hope you guys can follow along with that. So I'll parent my upper house pieces to my base house 5, which is just this gutter right here. Then I can lock my base house 5, and this just means everything is once again going to be attached. So now as that piece moves, my new pieces move, my upper house pieces or whatever I call them. So let's go ahead and with both our upper house layers selected, just click this bottom button, and that's going to move both our anchor points to the bottom of these layers. And then I'm going to press S on my keyboard to bring up my scale properties. Scale is probably the most used little like animation effect besides position. Actually, I'd say it's used a lot more than position. It's just a really easy way to bring on stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is parent my inner piece to my upper piece here. So I'll just actually, scrub forward a little bit and parent my upper house piece to my upper house 1 piece opposed to the base house. I'm so sorry this is getting confusing here, but it makes sense, I think, in the long run. So anyway, and what I can actually do is just hide these layers we're not using to well, never mind. Anyway, so try to get through this video. Let's see. So we have our scale properties done. Let's go ahead and set a keyframe for our scale properties and see where our animation is going. And you just want to keep things moving and interesting. So kind of as everything comes up to the top, I'm going to have those kind of shoot up. So I'm going to set both my Y properties down to 0 here. I'll just set my ease out to like 77, and that's just going to be a nice smooth movement. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to set my excite function onto both my scale keyframes. I'll grab my scale and actually turn up my overshoot to like 48. I'm going to turn my bounce down to 20 so it's not too much, and then I'm going to turn my friction up to 60. So I've been doing this I've been using this for a while now, so I know how it's reacting, and you can totally like replay it a couple times and change variables until you're happy. But yeah, I mean, I've just been doing it for a long time with this, so I can kind of guess and how the animation can turn out, and you guys can totally do that too within like 2 days, honestly. So anyway, I'm gonna grab this upper house piece and just select that layer and hold Alt and right click with my arrow twice, and that's just gonna stagger the layer or nudge it over 2 keyframes. So now when I play this, we're gonna have a whole bunch of movement happening all of a sudden, and just kind of nice organic movement, and have it settle down and move and just look very exciting. So that is cool. I'm happy with that. Why don't we go ahead and lock these 2 upper house layers? I'm gonna go and actually unlock all these layers for a second. do Command A to grab all your layers and press U to minimize all your layers and your keyframes. And then we've gone up to our window. I'm just going to lock all those layers so we can't click them. It looks like we can probably take care of these dudes up here. Guess I should lock my background too. These couple items right up here. And I will call these roof accents, I guess. And just click apply, and they're named. Very easy. We'll press S to bring up our much often used scale effect. And let's actually attach this to our roof 2. So now we are going to just drag down to our roof 2, which is right here, our upper roof 2, or upper house 2, whatever I called this thing. So now basically we have a chain. We have this outside gray part is a parent to this part, and then these are children of this part. So you have like a whole chain of events. So that's how you can start to get some very intricate movement with not a lot of work, is just parenting stuff. So I have all this stuff happening. Cool. Why don't we just press the scale keyframe here? I'm going to go ahead and unclick all my constrained proportions. Go back in time and just press 0 for my X property. So now they're all gonna shoot up just on the side like this. It's going a little funny for us, but it's all good. So I'll grab these keyframes here and just maybe turn up my easy ease so it shoots out really quick. I'm gonna turn it up to 100 and go crazy. And then I'll just grab in any order you want from the top or bottom. I'm gonna grab all of the ones except for one of the layers and do Alt, nudge it over 2 keyframes just so we get that nice stagger effect again. So grab the top 2 and then grab the very top one. And now as it comes out, we should get a nice little ripple effect going very slowly. Oh gosh, this is over 2 seconds. I'm not really zoomed in, so that is a ridiculously slow transition. So I'll just scale this down a little bit and not move all these layers, but scale this down so it actually moves quite quick. So there we go. That's the look we want. So now we have a nice little animation going on. So cool. Let's go ahead and press U to minimize this. I'm going to go ahead and lock these layers so we can't mess with them. And let's see what else is left. This really, like I said, does not take long. I'm explaining it, and so it's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, but we're getting a nice animation, so I hope you guys are still digging it. Let's go ahead and just create this deck movement really quick, which is very, very easy. I'm just going to go and grab all these layers just like that with my selection marquee. I'm going to go and name all these layers. I'm just going to call this deck piece and click apply, and it'll order them for us. I'm going to do Shift Command C to pre-compose these, and I'm just going to call this deck pieces, I guess. That makes sense. Press OK, and I'm just going to double click into here and grab all my layers and set my anchor point to the bottom for all of them. So as you can see, it all jumped down. Likewise, I could set them all to the sides or top, but I like having them at the bottom. I think this will work good for us. So I'll set it to the bottom here, just like that. Wait for it to finish. And then let's press S for our scale and just set a keyframe. Go back in time just a little bit. And actually what we can do, if you're ever working with a lot of stuff and you need to mess around with something, what you can do is actually unclick your constraint proportions on 1, and let's just set that very top one to 0. So that's going to scale it down to 0, and I will grab both those keyframes and set my easy ease to 89%. So we're going to get a nice little pop up. What I can do is just select those keyframes, press J on my keyboard twice to go back to the most recent keyframe right there, and then grab all my other layers and just do Command V. And that's going to actually paste our property onto all these layers just like that, which is so easy. So let's do that trick with staggering keyframes, because I don't want to have to nudge all these, where we're going to just go forward on our timeline to 2 frames and do Alt back bracket or forward bracket to cut them. And then I'll do grab them and right click, go to keyframe assistant, sequence layers. Let's go and make sure our overlap is on, and we're going to set our duration of our overlap to 1 second. All our keyframes will be staggered, and I'll just drag these out all the way and maybe make this composition longer. So Command K, and then I'll just make this 18 seconds, and yep, that is looking good. So I'll go back into my let's see here, my house keyframe, and let's see when our deck is coming in. So we have all this happen and our deck is building on separately. So I'll go to the end of the timeline, and then I'm going to parent my deck just to the house piece 3, which is what I remember to be the middle portion. So now it'll also scale up with our house as it is going. And so what we can do is just drag this composition over to like time it out properly, and we'll have it all like building on together. So cool. As you can see, as it's coming up, we have our little ripple effect happening. There's a little bit of a roll, and it looks really cool. You know, it's a lot of animation for really no work at all. So one more thing we're going to want to do for our deck is lock my deck layer here. We have these little extra pieces on our deck, so this is going to be easy to take care of. I will call this deck top bottom, because I have no idea which ones are which. Press apply, there they go, they're named. I'm going to drag them both above our deck to make sure they're sitting in front of our deck. We'll go over, and what I'm going to do is set my anchor point to the far right side of all of them, so as the transition is happening, they're also wiping on. So I'll set my anchor point over to the far right. I'll press S on my keyboard for the scale property. Click my scale property, go forward a little bit or backwards a little bit in time, unclick my constrain proportions property, and then I will, on my X property with all of them selected, press 0 for our scale to be gone. So there we go. Now they're going to look like they're popping up. I'll make this nice and animated, so I'll grab all my keyframes and set my easy ease to, let's call it 86. And now what we can do is just time this out, so as our pieces are wiping on here, and maybe we should also parent all of our deck layers to, let's parent our deck accent layers, our deck top bottom layers to our actual deck wipe on pieces. So it's all like one element essentially. So they're all coming on together. Let's go ahead and go back in time until it is wiping on. So as it starts to wipe on, let's go ahead and start to wipe on our top and bottom pieces. I'm just going to drag these keyframes back and try to time it out. So that is cool. See, wow, that actually lined up perfectly. And then as the other side comes on, I'll just drag those guys on over here, just like this, and see how that looks. So nice. We have a whole lot of animation happening with really no work. I would consider this close to no effort. A lot of me talking, but I hope this has made the process a little bit easier for you guys to make some cool animations. So we have almost everything done here, and this last thing is just a plant, which I guess I should have totally not put in, but we want it to be fancy, so we can kind of shortcut this. Let's go ahead and just grab our plant here, and what I'm going to do is just name this plant stuff. Once again, non-descriptive, but they're numbered, so it's all right. Let's go ahead, and it's made in the order we created it, which is nice, except for, yeah, so it's all good. So what I'm going to do is parent my top green piece to my branch, which is my plant piece 4, which is sitting behind everything. My plant piece 4, I will parent to the pot, which is 3, and then I'll parent my 2, which is just the accent to the pot, also onto 3, which is like our main controller. So for our main controller, why don't we add a little animation so everything is coming up. We're going to press S to bring up our scale property, and also holding shift press P to also bring up our position property. Set a keyframe for both because that's going to be our end point, and I'm going to go back in time just a little bit, and let's go ahead and we'll just drag it down on the y-axis, and then I'll also press 0 for my scale so it'll kind of pop up just like this. Super exciting. For our scale, why don't we go and click the excite option. We'll let it bounce around, which is easy. For the position property, what we're going to do is also set a excite property, so we have both of scale and position sitting on our layer, which is totally cool. It'll work great. For our position overshoot, why don't we set this really high? So that's saying, like, as you can see, that change is actually happening on our screen right now. It's the bounce back portion. So I'm going to set this up to like let's call it 87% of the function. I'm going to change my bounce to maybe like 18%, which is going to mean not a lot of bounce back. And then I'll turn my friction up so it's going to die really quick. So what this is going to do essentially is just add a nice little like overshoot and settle for this portion, I believe. Let's see here. So it kind of pops up and it has a very interesting movement that I kind of hate. So I'm actually going to kill these scale properties. So I'm just going to grab my scale here and click trash, and that'll remove them and also the expression. And we'll figure out a better option because that just did not look good. So we have a position thing pop up. That looks all right. I think the issue is our scale is happening a little bit late. So we're going to have the position property really get in there and almost be there. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. This is kind of up to you guys to come up with something you like. I'll just pretend this is nice. I'm not happy with it, but it is good enough. So that happens, and while that is happening, we're just going to also press S for scale on our top of our tree, and also P for our position. Set a keyframe for both of these and go back in time a little bit. I'm actually going to just drag the tree trunk off for a little bit and just pop this down to 0, and this is all fine because it's all parented together, so it'll still settle fine. So I will just set a very easy ease function on that. I'm actually going to kill this planter position thing, and maybe I'll just excite the scale property. So I'll grab my position and just trash that because that was stupid. Grab my scale property, click excite, make my end one into a linear movement, which is important for that function. And let's play this and see if this is better now. So it all pops in, and nice. That looks very silly, but I think it'll be all right for our animation. So I'll just squish these together. If you ever grab a whole bunch of keyframes, you can hold Alt and then click and just drag, and it'll compress all the keyframes together. So your animation will actually happen quicker. One thing I need to do is just make this little plant piece, this whatever you call this, branch or stick or something, draw on. So I'll just set my anchor point to the bottom of this, press S for scale, set a keyframe, unclick my constraint proportions, go back in time just a little bit, and set my y-axis scale to 0. And then I'll grab both these keyframes. I can even zoom in a little bit, pressing plus on my keyboard, and just also do a nice basic easy ease. We don't have to worry about that. So there we go. This is all happening. Cool. So exciting. So that looks nice. Now what we want to do is we can just grab all of our plant layers and do Shift Command C to pre-compose them. I'm just going to call this planter. And then we can just go forward in time quite a bit. I'll zoom out, and I'm going to do Command D to duplicate this layer, and I'm literally just going to drag it over to where the other planter was, because I don't feel like animating that one as well. And then I'll just duplicate those layers. Boom. So just like that, we have a animated house, in really no time at all. For the workflow of this, to get an animation that looks pretty good, you could do this for hundreds of elements, like without talking, and really rock it out. But this is just how you kind of make your animation look nice and like really smooth, slick animation kind of style. And then if you want to do anything extra, you can actually grab all your layers minus the background and pre-compose them. So Shift Command C, and we're just going to call this main house. And then if you want to take this even a little bit farther, once again in a very easy way, what you can do is, let's see, duplicate. Actually, what we should do is, since we can, I've actually started using some color features, just more and more. If they're there, why not? So I'll just bring in the curves. So I'm going to type curves into my effects here. And just drop this onto my layer, and then I'll just go down to auto, and that actually looks bad. That's horrible. So I'll smooth and reset it, and maybe, let's see, I'll just maybe drop down and make everything a little bit punchier. I don't know. Let's reset this. Actually, that was just a bad from start to finish. So I'm going to just drop down the color, get a little bit more contrast, and maybe pump up my whites a little bit. And just get the animation to pop. I'll go into my curves one more time, or not my curves, my color effects. Go down to color correction, and what we can do here is grab like let's call it a photo filter, I guess would probably be cool. Drop a photo filter on here, and put this beneath our curves, and it's a warming filter, so we get some nice retro tones. Why don't we set this up to like 35, and yeah, we have a nice little animation going for us. So that's fun. What we can do is actually duplicate. Well, that's really it for today, I guess. I could go crazy and just talk for another hour, which everyone would just not be so happy with. But anyway, I think today's video came out pretty cool. I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you guys had fun with making it. It's definitely a very easy way to get nice looking builds in After Effects. And this is like the thing you see on a lot of commercials and you're like, man, that is really awesome. That must have taken forever. It really doesn't. It's all just about staying a little organized and, you know, just the workflow of it. So I think this looks cool. And anyway, this was Matt from Mount MoGraph as usual. Here's my shameless plug. Once again, if you want to buy the motion script, you can find it at mountmograph.com/motion, or you can just go into the link below. It's $5 off for the next 27 days, so it runs you a whole $20, which is like, you know, 2 hours of work essentially at a really not so good job. But it has lifetime updates and it makes life easy. So anyway, yeah, I will talk to y'all later, and hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll talk to you later. Let me say that 5 more times. See ya.